Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Pleb's Perspective. I am someone who is not an ARPG head. The most experience I have with an ARPG is the Diablo IV beta. And prior to that, Path of Exile, which I stopped and started like probably 5 or 6 times because shit was just so overwhelming. I did not know what the fuck was going on or what to do. And I finally did level a character just to 70, I think it is. And even then, I know I probably only know maybe 10% of what is in the game. I only finished the campaign and I know there's a shit ton more. But yeah, that's basically my experience with the ARPG genre. As I mentioned, this is a pleb's perspective because as opposed to all the ARPG heads, the OGs and whatnot in the space, I felt like being able to give a fresh perspective not only on the genre, but on Diablo 4 from a mind and the eyes of someone new to the genre. I felt like it might just be worth talking about in this sort of framing. I've definitely watched a lot of videos leading up to the Diablo 4 beta, heard a lot of the concerns and the views and whatnot, which I'll go over here and in future videos of Diablo 4. But overall, I just wanted to give my take as a newcomer. I'll keep this part really quick. I just want to give a reasoning as to why, outside of just it being a new game, why I went ahead and dove in headfirst into Diablo 4. Basically, to summarize, some time ago, even after the whole, do you guys not have phones?
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Debacle. I started reading up on Diablo lore, or not reading, but watching videos on Diablo lore because I don't know, just something about it interested me at one point, and I was just looking for something to listen to. So I started listening to it, and the lore is fucking amazing. I love it. I want more of it, basically. And once Diablo 4 is finally coming out, getting released and all that, I was like, all right, you know what? Here's my money. Take it. And yeah, here we are. The beta just happened last week, and it took me some time to go ahead and get, my thoughts down because I was all over the place. I did have a lot of fun with the game. There are some concerns, but I wanted to put it out there to see what you all think. We'll start with literally the first thing we see. The graphics are amazing. I know there was a recent controversy, if you can even call it that, regarding the most recent gameplay footage released prior to the beta, but what I think most people didn't realize was that they were playing on console for couch co-op. So they were showcasing the couch co-op and it was on console. So you have something where you could play with friends, which is cool. But then of course, being on console, the graphics weren't all there. That said, I can see the argument that graphics should look better on current gen consoles, especially when compared to older titles that look better. With that, I haven't played on console in a very long time, but I do know that there are some games that outshine Diablo 4 graphically speaking, and they are online games and a lot does happen in them. I think Destiny comes to mind, Destiny 2. It's a different genre, but I still think there's some merit there. Maybe not a lot, but there is something there. The only thing against this that I could say is that we don't for sure know, at least not that I've seen or read, we don't for sure know what console the footage was from. We're kind of going off course here. Anyways, back to the graphics, specifically on PC. The shadows, the way the environment behaves as you move through it, and as you cast abilities, it's all amazing. Like, look at me casting my Shadow Bomb. There is literally a small crater in the snow. And also, watch this, dodging forward, so with the evade, dodging forward with a jump, leaves a gap from jumping to landing where the snow isn't pushed down. This is the type of shit that I actually love. Like, these details are top tier. I absolutely love it. And just, the water, the weather effects. I mean, granted, there are some things that are kind of like, maybe they cheaped out a little bit on it. But overall, graphically, this shit is amazing. It blows my fucking mind. Like this, I love it. Absolutely love it. with the UI, I know that there were a lot of complaints about it, but I don't see what the big problem is other than new items are barely noticeable in your inventory when you pick them up, and stats can use a little better explaining on what is contributing to them. New items just have a little shimmer that happens like every so often, and I would prefer more of maybe like a green check mark or something that is static. Oh, if they want to add shimmering, maybe the check mark can like shimmer or whatever. You know, I don't know, and I don't care really. I just want something that stays on the item, just so that way, you know, it's immediately noticeable exactly what it is that I picked up that's new. Because many instances you grab a lot of stuff, your inventory is all over the place. Maybe you move some things around, and you have to kind of like look for the few items that are shimmering in this clusterfuck of an inventory that you set up for yourself. Oh, speaking of, being able to categorize your items more than just junk. Oftentimes I found that I would want to save an item for future use, and though I would mark a lot as junk, there were a few items I was unsure of. So I didn't want to mark it as junk quite yet, but I also didn't want to forget that I was looking at that item for potential use in the future. I think a better solution would be, you know, more categories. So like mark for salvage, mark for selling, mark for trade, maybe mark for crafting purposes. Shit, just an additional marking for selling or trading would have been helpful. Now, the stats, they should be clickable in that you can get advanced details on the math behind them, what's contributing to them, as well as what they directly affect and just how they're affecting it. I know there is a setting you could turn on that I found later, you know, for advanced information, but I think having the capability to just spot check the items and stats would be better, because I don't want to have the advanced stats 24/7. I mean, to be clear, I find the advanced stats on the items just looks ugly. It does not look good. So I rather just right click, check stats, you know, get the advanced info, done deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also, going from when you click on you for looking for your stats, you have materials and stats, but then it goes to your materials first. Why don't they just make the materials its own separate inventory tab? Like, you have one for equipment, have one for flasks, or potion elixirs, sorry. Have one for aspects. Like, why not just have one for fucking your materials? And just leave the stats next to your character screen, just the stats, you know? And you could get the rundown on the overpower, all that shit. Yeah, it would just make things a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier. And I do think that is a decent enough solution for that specific topic. In regards to placement of the health, mana, and skills, I'm mostly indifferent. I've seen people complaining about it, but they don't offer any solutions or ideas. Breaking off of Diablo discussion really quick, if you want something to change, but don't articulate how or why, I mean, that's like saying you want your partner to finger you a little bit better, but you don't offer suggestions to make it better. Like, come on, you know, more fingers, less, curl up, curl down. You know, anything would be better than just that's bad. Do something else. It's like, okay, tell me what you want. You know what I mean? I find that to be a much far better way of critiquing, because not only are you presenting a problem, you're offering a potential solution. That said, I did find an option in the settings to move everything to the bottom left, and it's okay. I don't like the full separation of the map all the way at the top right, and you know, my resources and such all the way to the bottom left, but it's also not terrible. My solution to this is to offer players full customization, just like in WoW, in World of Warcraft. You know, let me move each part to its own spot if I want to, hide certain elements if I want to, etc., etc. If I don't care what my skills look like and I only want to know my resources and my health showing, let me do that. If I don't care about my health showing or whatever, or XYZ, let me do that. I would love that capability. Aside from that, if that's too much, the only other option I can see is maybe giving us variations that are at each edge and corner of the screen, with an option for maybe like a minimalist setup where we might take the orbs and replace them with just numbers, and the skill icons are shown but without key bindings. Having options is never a bad thing. It's the limitation that is a problem, because I am certain that there are people out there that love the UI as is. However, options will always be king, in my opinion. So that was the UI, but now let's get on to the sound. The sound design is really nice. Like, it's really nice. Your attacks, movements, and your hits all sound like they have meaning and weight behind them. Now, I played as a rogue the whole time, and dashing around, making quick attacks, it felt really nice. My attacks felt and sounded as nimble and as lethal as an assassin would normally be. This is definitely due to the combination of animations and sound design, and they really complement each other. Even from the enemies, when I got hit hard, knocked down, or pushed away, sometimes like I actually felt offended. Like, damn, you really had to do me like that? Short answer is yes. Yes, they did. And speaking of combat, since I only played the rogue, I'm going based on what many others have said regarding the other classes when I get to them. That said, the rogue was a lot of fun to play. I took the twisting blade skill and almost changed it to try something else, but found an item that changed it all up and made me feel very powerful in most instances. And just really quickly, I'll get more into itemization, skills, and customization in another video, because I believe those should be their own discussion. But briefly, the item allowed the return of my blades to spin around me a couple times, dealing damage to all enemies around me. When I coupled this with my shadow imbuement, enemies were exploding all over the place. Usually, mobs wouldn't last more than a few seconds, but it wasn't so strong that elites were dying in, 2 hits, 3 hits. And I'll summarize what others have said about the Sorcerer and Barb. Sorcerer broken OP.
Okay, gentlemen, y'all ready? Here we go.
I'm not ready yet.
Look how happy he is.
And Barbarian is basically a turtle that occasionally bites your finger off. Slow, and every once in a while gets a mean hit in. Yeah. Moving on from the combat to the enemies and the scaling of the game. When it comes to enemy scaling, I did not like the fact that they level up with you. It makes you feel like you're never actually getting stronger, which is something that a lot of the community has voiced already. It's almost as if no matter what you did, your character would only deal a certain percentage to enemies at a time. What I mean is like, if a level 5 player will do 25% damage per hit, just like a level 10, 15, and 25 player will do 25% damage per hit at any given moment. So to sort of contextualize this, imagine a level 5 player, they see the enemy, and maybe the enemy's health bar is 100. They do 25 damage. If we go to a level 25 player, the enemy has 1,000 health. They do 250 damage. So although technically they're strong, at the same time they're basically the same, and there's really no increase in strength that's felt. The only increase in strength that you feel, I believe, comes more with your cooldowns and attack speed, because then your DPS will be higher, but the actual damage from an individual hit is not, it doesn't grow. You know what I mean? Hopefully that makes sense. Basically what it comes down to is that there's almost no sense of progression with combat power unless you use your imbuements and other abilities to buff yourself up, at which point you're 1 or 2 shotting bad guys. The thing is though, I don't think you should have to buff yourself up to kill enemies at the early part of the game, like especially once you've like leveled up. You should be able to do a basic attack and just obliterate them. Being able to come back and absolutely split them in half with the flick of a finger is what you should be able to do. On that note, I did watch a Riker video for his impressions, and Riker makes a good point in that during the end game you'll be extremely strong, and Sanctuary itself is the end game. There's no mapping or rift, so if monsters are too weak, a portion of the map becomes obsolete. Why would you ever go in there for anything? And that's a very valid point. You have the whole world, and if you're too strong for the low level areas, why would you even bother wasting your time? You would much rather farm the higher level areas. So the scaling, according to how Riker is describing it, is so that way you always have a reason to go back, which I see that point, and in a general sense I agree, but I still think that there's a better option. And what that better option to me is, instead of purely scaling with the character or rendering portions of the world obsolete, it would be more like this. During endgame content, any missions that you have in those areas, the lower level areas, enemies get buffed up to match your level. Or it could be something like, maybe they become glass cannons. Like they retain lower level movement and attack speed, but they have the potential to 1 or 2 shot you, but you have the ability to 1 shot them. So you still have that insane power, but also maybe you're a little bit more fragile in a sense. I don't know if that's, good, but like I said, I'm just throwing shit out there. On the flip side, instead of glass cannons, or maybe they become tanky, maybe they have, health regen, and they move a little bit quicker, but they don't do as much damage. Maybe they have a slight buff to damage, but it isn't as much as the glass cannon example that I gave. And since they're moving and attacking a little faster, they have more potential to overwhelm you. In both cases, there are different strategies to be implemented requiring you to adjust your tactics. Now, like I said earlier, I don't know if this is a good thing. I mean, is this a good scenario? Is either option good? I honestly have no idea. Does that make sense? To me, kinda. Because I think it fits both sort of ideals of scaling up with, but then also being able to travel any part of the world and obliterating enemies, so that way you don't have to struggle in a fight every single time. That said, to the ARPG heads out there, I would love to know what you think, because I don't know, to me it sounds good, but I could be missing something. Now, in regards to merging MMO and ARPG sort of design, right? The idea of making a game like this, to my understanding, is relatively new, or at least new for the Diablo series outside of Immortal. Again, I don't fully know, but the discussion of this makes it seem like it's a new thing. Overall, I liked being able to group up with random people at random times for specific events, and especially for the world boss, Ashava the Pestilent. The world boss was a lot of fun and kicked my ass, as well as many others trying to take it on. The caveat to this, though, is I didn't like the parts where I was doing my own thing and an event would pop up on my map. I would go to it and it would already be done by some other people, or I would be almost done with it just for someone to come by and do cleanup. And I'm not sure how to explain this, but it's kind of a weird feeling in that I felt like I would be soloing the event and having someone come by to finish it off, or it took away from the feeling of accomplishment. I'm not too sure how to explain it. Yeah, like I wanted that just for me, It's a mixed bag, and because I didn't always feel that way, only sometimes, and sometimes I actually needed the fucking help, especially at a lower level. I think, though, that being able to opt out of having others come in to help you during certain instances would be pretty cool. Like, you keep that lone hero feel for the majority of the game. Then when world bosses or major events, like the Gathering Legion event in Core Dragon, or Dragon, I don't know how to say it. I'm just saying Core Dragon. It's being a group event. This bridges the gap between people who want full solo experiences, but still being able to take part in group events for nice gear and XP. Or, if that's not possible, maybe allow us to limit the amount of possible people we could run into based on like level. Maybe 4 or 5 others max, or even 3 or 2. It would keep the mostly lonely feel, but allowing a small chance to see someone else and share a brief moment in your journeys. Because the reason I say this is because there are many times when walking around, crossing paths with people, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, you're doing your thing. It didn't bother me per se, but I don't know, at times it felt like it would take me out of this sort of hero immersion that I was kind of feeling at times. I don't think I'm the only one that feels this way. I'm sure others feel it, but it wasn't a problem all the time. But yeah, just being able to reduce that even more, I would appreciate. So to what I was saying about the leveling, you know, there are definitely issues where you're a level 25, level 20, and a level 5 or a 10 comes by and nukes the enemies, like I said before. And it ties into that scaling, that feeling strong, and it doesn't feel good. Like, you put in all this work, you have all these items just for someone who's new to come by, nuke everything. And it's kind of like, dude, what the fuck? Like, why is this a thing? We shouldn't even be, you know, helping each other or like crossing paths, which is why I was saying limiting the people who we see by level, because if I'm level 25, I'm going to want to be around other level 25s, you know, maybe 20 to 25. Having people within the same area of progression as you makes everything feel better, just overall. You don't have those instances of like, fuck, I'm a level 25, but this level 5 nuked the bad guy now, and I was having problems for whatever fucking reason. So with all that being said, overall, I had an absolute blast playing Diablo 4. There were a few bugs, mostly sound related, like desynced sound in the cinematics. Oh, speaking of cinematics, really quick, back to the sound. I forgot to mention the voice acting. Oh my god. So good, and the story is great so far. Like, I'm loving it. Man, it's so good. But yeah, I felt like I can't believe I forgot to mention that earlier, but that I just had to throw it back in there. So yeah, so desynced sound and cinematics at times, and you know, there were some instances where I think I was fighting some bad guys after witnessing a cutscene or during, I forget what, but then like all the explosions and whatever, it just wasn't happening. I don't know what the issue was. I mean, the sound came back, like I heard other sounds like the ambiance, the atmosphere, but just the effects from the attacks just wasn't happening. It was weird, you know. And I also have other concerns that I'll go over in the future videos. But despite all that, I literally no-lifed the beta weekend, and truth be told, I haven't had this much fun with a game in a while, and I definitely was not expecting Diablo 4 to be that game. I'm happily looking forward to improvements, and I really hope the devs, yes, I know it's Blizzard, but I really hope the devs take in the feedback and work with the community to make something that is feeling really good into something that is phenomenal. That might be naive of me, and if so be it. But if the devs are truly passionate about Diablo as a series and Diablo 4, I am gonna be mostly optimistic, not delusionally optimistic. Is delusionally a word? I don't know. You know, that they will, you know, take feedback and work with the community. Aside from that, I mean, now the question goes to you, my fellow plebs. I mean, if you played, did you feel the same way? Even if you didn't play, what are your thoughts on everything that you've seen so far? Do you agree or disagree with any of my potential solutions to any of the issues that I brought up? Please let me know, because I would really love to hear what you have to say. And whether you're a pleb like me, or if you're an ARPG fan of many years, I just really want to know what you got to say. That's it. Have a good one. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you on the next one, and I don't know, I need a tagline.